Recording. Well, welcome to the May 10th, 2022 session of Tangerine SDR and Hamside Technical Session. My name is Dave, KV0S, and this week I've been working on organizing Raspberry Pis, actually. I had a bunch that were in boxes, and now I have them mounted in a way that they're accessible. So, and I'm trying to organize what goes on each one so that they're not redundant and collaborative. So we'll see how well it works. So next on the list, we have Nathaniel, W2NAF, and I assume you're going to talk about what you just did on the weekend.
Sure, yeah. So I've been doing a lot of stuff this weekend. So one of the things I did was I updated my Eclipse calculator code, which I put the link in the chat, and that lets you calculate the obscuration and the paths for really whatever eclipse, but the two eclipses I cared about are the one on October 14th in 2023. That's going to be an annular eclipse that follows this path over here. So my code will generate this, and you can choose whatever altitude you want to look at. I chose 300 kilometers altitude for the F region. And then it also generates these very nice, the frames you need to make these nice movies.
Nice.
Annular eclipse. And then we have the, this is the total eclipse. It's going to be on April 8th, 2024. And that goes this way. And then here's the corresponding movie. And then I did a lot with did I show the figure last week of the John Gibbons NAOBJ Doppler shift from 2 years?
I don't think so.
Okay, I think this is a really nice figure. So bring this up really quickly. So Christina is actually the first one who made this figure, but I just redid it in Python so I could, using the data she gave me, because then I can have a little more control over how the annotations look and all that stuff. But yeah, this is 2 years worth of grape data from John Gibbons' station. And so you're seeing the year along the x-axis here. This is midpoint local time from 0 to 24. So you've got morning down here, or I guess you have local midnight down here, and wrapping around a local midnight up there. And then blue is positive Doppler shift, and red is negative Doppler shift. And so you just see everything in here. You see, you get to the morning, you see the positive Doppler shifts in the morning, you get a hard start, and then it becomes more diffuse, and you see positive Doppler shifts all through dawn, and then all through until noon. And then when you get into the afternoon, it switches over to the negative Doppler shifts as the ionosphere recedes and goes into dusk. And then here's the evening there. And then you have night. And during the summers, you get this really interesting stuff going on through the night, which I think is neat. You also see, you see that in the summertime, you have more daylight hours. In the wintertime, you have less daylight hours. And you can see that, so you can really see these seasonal variations as well as the diurnal variations.
So here's a question.
Yeah.
I don't know, John's not here, but in, what was it? Where you see the red at here at the end, is that when he switched to it? Is this just grape 1 or is this grape 1 and 2?
This is just grape 1, but we think he put a different antenna on over here.
Okay.
So we think this might be instrumental. It's a very sudden shift, but I think this is interesting. This is seasonal here. So during the summer nights, you see a lot more variability in Doppler activity at night than you do in the winter times.
Yes. Very good.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm trying to figure out what would cause that. I wonder if it has anything to do with the
Sun's
higher
poking over
amount
the
of
pole.
lightning.
It will make a great paper. If we can write a paper that addresses that,
Yeah,
I'm sure we can get it published.
During summer, the sun is poking over the pole.
Yeah.
I'll bet that's got a lot to do with it.
But then we have to actually link that to the TIDs that are coming through at night, because or the variability that we see here, because that's what we're seeing. So very, very interesting. So I think this is great because I think this is the longest data record we have from any personal space weather station instrument. And
that's interesting.
so for all of those people who are collecting GRAPE data, I want to encourage you to continue to do so, because even if we're not looking at it right now, you know, this making these sorts of plots from your data is in the pipeline. And the more of these that we're able to put together, it's going to be easier to see the big picture. Because you see, like any one day, it's kind of like, okay, I'm not really sure what's going on. But boy, when you have 2 years and you're able to plot it like this, it really, really shows something. And then if we're able to get that from multiple, you know, locations across the continent, you know, we might be able to put together a picture that we just couldn't see with any one data point.
Nathaniel, there's
Yeah.
a lot more lightning in the summertime.
At night.
Oh,
Yeah.
day, 24 hours a day.
Yeah,
Right.
you'll see it 24 hours.
But you see those streaks in the middle of the day too.
Yeah. But you don't see, but you see a lot more negative Doppler shifts. Well, and a lot more at night here and here, I'd say, even than you do during the day.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, it's kind of interesting. It looks like in the winter, you get more Doppler shifts here, and then it kind of becomes more
Yeah.
neutral in the summer. And then again, more. There's a lot of really interesting seasonal variations that I think we can hypothesize about, but I don't think we necessarily can point to the absolute answer unless we do a bit more work.
Yeah, by the way, we've done similar plots for the AM Doppler data as well, year to year.
Does it look similar?
Yes, it does.
That's encouraging.
Yes.
That's really good. Yeah. So do you have those published, David?
Yeah, I think Claire did
They're in
have
her
that in her
thesis.
paper.
We'll take a look at that.
So Nathaniel, you done?
All done.
Okay. Next on the list is Jim, K4BSE. Go ahead, Jim.
Good evening, all. I have a couple of interesting things this week. I had another event last weekend where my grape inexplicably went off the air for reasons that I can't discern. And what happens is that the frequency that FL Digi tunes to, which should be 1 kilohertz, all of a sudden jumps to something different. And I haven't figured out why. That happened just before midnight UTC last Saturday. And I didn't notice it until about 0200 hours this morning, yesterday morning UTC, Monday morning UTC, and corrected it. And I'm not sure why it is doing that big jump, but it does occasionally jump, and I can't correlate it with anything going on in the shack. At one time, I inadvertently I've got the power supply for the Grape One, excuse me, for the microprocessor, got that plugged into a UPS. At one time I had my station power supply also plugged into the UPS, and that was more load than the UPS should be rated to take when I was transmitting. And I hypothesized that might have been the problem. I corrected that error, and I still get it occasionally, but not as much. So I'm
Jim,
still,
yeah, do you clear the plots from your display? All those plots that show up every day, do you clear those regularly?
do I clear them? No, I can see the display, and that's how I found the problem.
Well, but
But
the way mine is set up, it gives daily plots, the signal strength and the Doppler shift for every day. I
okay,
get a
yeah, I get those every day. That's what I'm
Okay.
looking at.
Yeah, but the problem I have is if you click on those incorrectly, it can shift the frequency of the FL digi quite a bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, be real careful about how you end those, how you close those. If you do it if you double click, if I double click on it, it puts the center frequency for FL digi wherever I double clicked, which is not 1000.
Okay, yeah, I have noticed that effect. I don't think I'm doing that, but I
Well,
can't swear to it.
it's a problem here.
Yeah, sometimes the frequency jump happens when I'm not even in the shack.
Different problem.
And so I'm puzzled as what it is. The other thing that is of interest, I'll just mention briefly, not related to this project, is I finally got my, I think I mentioned I was trying to get a vertical antenna up for a local 10-meter net, and I finally got a vertical dipole up and working. And I compared it an hour ago on our Monday night net, and compared the signal strength received from other local stations to that of my in-fed half wave that I have been using. And as you might expect, it's a variable mix. Some stations, the in-fed was up to 3 S units better on. Other stations didn't make any difference. Other stations, I had one station that was down in the mud in the in-fed and very copyable on the vertical. So I guess it just goes to show that it depends. I haven't totally digested that yet. I'm probably gonna go with this for a couple of months, a couple of weeks, and then I may replace the in-fed half wave with a J pole and see what it looks like. Anyway, that's about it. Back to net K4BSE.
Sounds interesting, Jim. Next on the list, we have Michael, AA8K. Go ahead, Michael.
Thanks, Dave. Greetings to everyone listening. Back to you, Dave.
Fine business. Next on the list is Bill in 8ET. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I've got a question on the plots I've been getting. See if I can share a screen here. I seem to have, this is, what is it, 2 nights ago. Seems to be fairly regular. This is, really shows up. I got the dip like this when it shuts down, and other days, let's see. Over there.
Those windows that you're moving are obscuring our picture here. Bill, you're muted. We're not hearing you.
Yeah, I'm curious if those excursions that I see what the big one was two nights ago, and it seems to be fairly regular at night. I'll get an excursion like that. Is that something that's going on that I should be seeing, or is that something that should look here to find out if maybe I'm losing lock on them?
Were you talking about the excursions in the red signal strength line or the black?
Well, they're both actually that,
Yeah.
see if I can bring that back again. Yeah, right here, there's, see, both of those at the same time. And it comes up the same time.
Yeah,
I
I
think-
have, your shapes look somewhat different than mine, but I have seen the same kind of thing. I didn't see anything in there that I would say is radically different from what I've seen.
Okay.
I think this is where we will eventually, I know, eventually be moving to the digital RF version of the GRAPE software, and it'll be so much easier to diagnose these things, looking at the spectrum rather than these individual
Okay.
frequency plots. It's very, very hard to diagnose what's going on here, but if we had a spectrum plot, I think it would be a lot easier to understand.
Yeah,
Nathaniel?
one day I lost lock on the GPS, and that looked very similar to what happened here, although there weren't the big excursions on the 2 nights ago. But when the GPS lost lock, the frequency disappeared right off the screen. But it
Yeah.
looked the same, and I wondered if maybe some reason at night the thing is going away on me for an hour or two and
Yeah.
back on. So
Mine will go off the plus or minus 1 hertz frequently. And it's not a GPS lock, it's just the Doppler shift. And the other thing, Nathaniel, you
Yeah.
mentioned some kind of a spectroscopic display.
Mhm.
Will that work on the original GRAPE receiver?
It will, yes. In
Super.
fact, you can do it now if you want. Bill Engelke is not here because he's still on vacation in California. But when he comes back, he has the code and to do the spectroscopic version of this if you wanted.
Okay,
you
interesting.
you could actually upgrade today.
Yeah, I have the spectroscopic version code, and I got the hardware he recommended to go with it. It's sitting in a box. I was going to convert over some time ago, and then I just got so fascinated by the plots we were getting from this that I've dragged my feet in the conversion. I'm wondering when would be the best time to do that, now or wait?
I mean, it's a bit of a toss up. I think as we get the I think it's okay to wait a little bit longer because that other code is not totally mature yet. And I think we are, the nice thing about what we're doing right now is it's fairly cheap and it doesn't require a lot of data space or a lot of
Right.
maintenance. And as you could see from the plot I showed tonight, we are able to get interesting science out of what we have as it is. It's
Mhm.
just, so it's not like a total waste. It's just that when we do, we will eventually want to move up to the next thing. So,
Sure.
yeah.
that's all I have this week.
Okay. Next on the list is Joe, W7LUX. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Haven't been doing a whole lot with the ham size stuff. Went out with a girlfriend and did some camping. It is absolutely delightfully quiet out there in the forest. I live basically in the Coconino National Forest, and we went maybe 6 or 7 miles from here between Flagstaff and Sedona, set up, and the S meter did not even move except for an occasional lightning strike some distance away. Here at my place, the S meter is anywhere between S5 and S9 on most bands, or the lower bands anyway. So just delightful in the forest. Thanks, Dave.
Very good. Next on the list is Dan in for XWE. Does that sound familiar to you, Dan?
Yeah, it does. Amazingly. Okay, so thanks, Dave. And good evening, everybody. Not a lot to report. Getting ready for Dayton. Sent a couple of things to Dayton today as part of my demo I'm going to do, and that's about it from here. Back to you, Dave.
Okay, fine business. Next on the list is Dave, KD0 EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Hello, all. Not a lot to report. I've been working on some EndNode stuff with Jules and doing some Arduino things, which is unfamiliar territory for me until recently. I've always worked on other stuff, but slowly getting all the similarly named things sorted out a bit and experimenting with different ways to retrieve data from particularly magnetometer and other small low data rate instruments. That's it for me. Thanks.
Very good. Next on the list is David, M1HJC. Go ahead, David.
Good evening, everyone. Had an interesting week. I made the first trip outside of the country. Was up in New Brunswick. The other New Brunswick, I have to talk to be clear about that, with the New Jersey guys. They think a different New Brunswick. But we were up delivering some of our equipment that's going to go up to Baffin Island, hopefully, to do some research. It's going to be a very difficult environment because not only does it have the NDBs, like a 6 kilowatt non-directional beacon that we apparently sit almost underneath the antenna of. I don't know if this is going to work. One of the sites has an AM broadcast station. It's got a high power sounder, ionospheric sounder at each site, not to mention all the other radios that get used in HF for like marine operation and stuff. So we'll see. But it was also interesting that this was the people who have the CADI, Canadian Advanced Digital Ionosonde. It's similar to the Lowell ionosondes at 600 watt pulse instead of the chirp version. But apparently they do synchronize it, so it is possible to do oblique soundings with them, which they do. So that might be of interest to our group as well. So I was away for 3 days, and I was pleased that they let us back in. I'm always concerned when I leave the country that it's always the US customs that gives us more trouble in getting out of country. And then one thing I'll also mention, I was talking about the AM Doppler project. That's sort of on hiatus right now, but we have plans to expand it around the country. We've got a bunch of new receivers in process, and ultimately, this anything that we're doing, we'll be able to do that, as well as the WWV and all the other ideas that we have. So I guess that's about it for me. Back to Net.
Okay.
Oh, the other thing is
Go ahead.
we've gotten very dry here already, and even though we're New Hampshire, we're getting fires. So it's going to be a fun season.
I didn't mention, except before the recording, but here in Missouri, last week we were in the 60s and 70s, and this week we're in the 90s. So it's
We
warming
get
up.
near 90 later this part of this week.
Yep. So it's coming towards you guys in the east. I don't know how warm it'll stay, but next on the list is James, KG4 DSG. Go ahead, James.
Evening, Dave and the group. Not much going on here. I posted a bunch of garbage links in the chat, something I just discovered. Not really space weather related, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless. There's a new SDR transceiver. It's going to be announced at Dayton, under $250 as a kit, based on a teensy, with the color display. I just thought it was interesting, and it's definitely bringing the cost of HF entry to people way down. 250 is less than 2,000. So take a look if you're interested. If not, just ignore it. Back to the net.
Well, fine business. Next on the list is Jay, WB8 SBI. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, good evening, everybody out there. Nothing particular to report at this time, just counting the days, hours, minutes, and seconds until the gathering next week, when the pilgrimage, after a 2-year hiatus, shall resume.
There you go.
So until then, just sitting back, reading the mail on everybody. Take care, stay safe.
Okay. Next on the list is Jay Kennedy. Go ahead, Jay.
Hi, it's my first time in with you folks, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to do that. I'm Kilo 6 Mike Indy Oscar. I grew up as a kid in Fresno, ended up in Florida, finishing my college. And acquired some children along the way. And my technical background is actually astrophysics. And I was in Tucson for a long time with a group of observatories there. And then after about 10 years, the big boss sent me over to Hilo, where we were in the process of building 2 very large telescopes, one right there on the mountain, and a twin to it down in southern America, to get all of the good news. Did a lot of 6 meter throughout all of that. However, all our children and grandchildren and maybe great grandchildren, I'm not sure yet. It's always been in our plan, and my wife and I, Linda, came back to Florida. We're in St. Augustine, and it's kind of the best central for all of our kids. And at this point in time, I have all kinds of equipment, but no place to put it at the moment. We're still moving in. When you're 80 years old, it takes a lot longer to do things.
Yes.
Some of you may recall. But anyhow, I love 6 meters. Did a lot of 2. I went down to the lower bands for other folks that wouldn't talk to me unless I didn't. But I've enjoyed very thoroughly having on your list and a couple of others that you also know. And I'm looking forward to, if I can't get something on the air, damn it, I'm going to talk to you guys. Anyhow, thank you very much, and I'm delighted to have an opportunity to chat with you now, and hopefully in the near future.
Whereabouts in Florida did you go to school?
Yeah, at UF.
Okay. I'm USF, Tampa.
Well, that's okay.
I was going to
Oh.
go to UF, but I got started at USF and just stayed there.
Well, I was actually came to there from Fresno, and I had put out um, some things about the specific things that I was interested in dealing with, and the one at UF turned out to be great. It turns out that they have some really nice ladies there, including my wife.
Very good. Well, welcome, and hopefully you find things interesting in our discussions, and we'll
I
come
certainly
back
have.
and
certainly have.
participate. So, thank you very much. Next on the list is Jonathan, KC3 EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. It was a pretty good week. My Skywatch 16 segment aired last Tuesday, and they did a really nice job in editing it, and it kind of showed the public natural radio, which is kind of what I wanted. So that I was very happy with that. I posted the link to it on the email boards. Also, I have been there has been there has been a SID detection with a amateur VLF transmission. This happened at the end of April when we were having all that solar activity, and it happened at 5.170 K, and it's actually really interesting. I'm going to share the screen. You could see this is a plot of the signal. What you can actually see here. So we have here 3 VLF receivers, a vertical E field, north-south H field, and east-west H field. And you can see the signal strength. This happened April 15th and 16th, and you can see on the east-west H field, just at around 10:45 UT, there's a little dip in the signal. So that was at the same time that there was a solar storm going on, or a solar flare. So this was technically the first time that a amateur VLF signal was used to, or well, an amateur VLF signal accidentally detected a SID, which is really, really, really cool. And I also want to explain this signal here. So this is something called EBNAUT, using coherent BPSK, a coherent GPS frequency and phase locked carrier using binary phase shift keying. The message is only a couple carriers, and the actual durations when the message is sent are these flat areas of the signal. And these dips that you see are reduced carrier power when the message actually finishes. One of the decoding techniques is to stack these transmissions, and it's the same transmission. So they're actually stacked, and when you stack them, you can actually get a better chance of a decode. So this is a really, really cool event that I really thought was something that should be shared. This image here is a constellation plot of the EBNOT transmission, and you can see in the upper right corner here, the solar flare actually causes a split in the BPSK constellation, which is really, really cool. So this just opens doors for very exciting amateur transmissions during these solar flare events. It's really cool to actually see what these solar flares do. And also one thing that I wanted to mention is that this transmission and others were done using Earth probe antennas, or an Earth loop, where you have your two antenna terminals stuck into the ground, and current is fed into those terminals, and the moisture in the ground creates a conductive path which forms a loop. And if you have a lot of land and moist ground, you could actually make a very, very nice Earth probe antenna. Also, one last thing that I wanted to mention, back in August, there was an ionospheric sounding experiment done at VLF. It was a frequency sweep between around 4K to 8K, and there was some really good results with that using an Earth probe antenna. It showed the ground wave and the successive sky waves of that sounding. So that was really, really exciting, and these are the amateur experience that I would like to continue with. Lastly, I am Nathaniel is ordering the last parts for his systems, the GPS antenna mast and cable and adapters and everything else. And also I ordered some 75 ohm isolation transformers. Those are on back order until July. Those will be for the Radio Jove antenna. And the loops. That's all I have. Back to Nanette.
Well, fine business, Jonathan. Next on the list, we have Jules, K2 KGJ. Mike, Jules.
Harry, how about now?
Yes.
Better? All right. On the earlier mention on that half-wave end-fed 10-meter antenna, I'm curious, was that the conventional end-fed half-wave with a transformer at the end, or was it the K9YC center-fed end-fed half-wave, which is made out of coax? The lower half of the antenna actually is the outer shield of the coax that then goes to a pair of 31 material chokes, which provide the isolation at the end of that. And that style of antenna I found works very, very well. My neighbor has one that I made for him out of RG 5 cable. And that's a handy antenna. I was just curious to know that whether the antenna mentioned earlier was the conventional one with the 9-to-1 transformer at the end. Got on, speaking of 6 meters, I was thinking of John Kennedy's comment there. I was on this week with FT8 and QRP on 6, making a number of contacts, having a lot of fun with that. Nice to see some of the openings coming back. Regarding ham side, Dave, KD0EAG and I have been conversing over email a lot this week and last week regarding a low power implementation of the RM3100 with a remote access via LoRa to provide a very low power system that can be either powered by solar or by a long-term battery. This is the current version of it with an Arduino Nano at the end here, the Nano 380, ATP 380, which has been modified for 3.3 volts, a 97C LoRa chip, and finally the RM3100 sensor over here. The whole thing without, when the Wi-Fi is not, rather when the LoRa is not transmitting, the current drain is, and this is not going into sleep, this is just continuous, is 13 mils. And that's on a 3.3 volt supply. So that's about the lowest we've been able to get to so far, and would make a fairly nice portable installation to run for a few days or maybe a few weeks, depending upon the battery size, transmitting data back to a local location over LoRa. That's pretty much it from here. I'll turn it back to Nit. And it's also been warm here. We're not too far from the New Hampshire border either. And we're into a nice spell of dry weather at the moment. We have until May 14th, we've got fire hazard warning that's been on for a month. Hopefully by the 14th, things will dampen up enough so we can do some outside burn. Back to Nit.
Well, fine business. And next on the list, we have Scotty, WA2DFI. Go ahead, Scotty.
Well, hello there.
Oh, there you are. We thought you were out in the lake, in the ocean.
I'm out in the water. Yes, having fun. Soon to be needing water because it's teasing us with pushing 100 degrees here. Has not made it yet. We've hit 99 and 98, but we have, and then drop back down. So, but probably by the time I get back from Hamvention, it'll be over 100 most of the time. Anyway, not much going on. Just waiting for the assembly to be up. Haven't heard anything from the CM, which is good news. And in process are the magnetometers, the production run of magnetometers, and the adapter board, the RF adapter, RF module adapter board, and the loopback boards are waiting in the wings to be assembled next. They're already ordered, but they haven't. We haven't given them the parts kit yet. It's probably going to happen tomorrow. And doubt I'm going to get anything before Hamvention, but of course it will be the day after I leave. Everything will show up. And then the last thing on the list really is the clock module carrier board. And I don't know if I talked about this last week, but I put in an ARDC grant request to build the data engine Mark II. So if that comes about, we'll maybe be able to have some higher performance data engines, maybe even before we get the lower performance data engines, but at least, but not before we get the off-the-shelf adapter board, off-the-shelf FPGA boards going, which should happen right after Dayton. So I guess that's it for here. Back over to you, Dave.
Okay. And next on the list is Tom in 5EG. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, good evening, Dave, everybody in the group. Well, let's see, the weather here is in the 40s and raining for the last week. So the opposite change. Missed last week. I was in Hawaii for a week, and where it was beautiful, and got back. Spent Sunday at the Phoenix airport and got back Sunday night. I'm still working on porting OpenHP SDR to GNU Radio 3.10. I found some tool incompatibility problems between 3.9 and 3.10. Ryan Volts up at MIT found it and pointed me in the right direction. Great help. And the Ubuntu distributions have the wrong tool versions in them, so that precipitates the exercise called hunting for the tarballs. And got those installed and cleared the first set of issues. So we'll be working on the next ones and hope everyone has a great time at Dayton.
Very good. Well, unless somebody else has jumped in there, I think we have 16 tonight, and so we should be open for general discussion.
You're muted, Nathaniel.
Yeah. Are the tickets for the Tapper Banquet still on sale?
They are at
Okay.
amsat.org.
amsat.org. Okay.
And you must get one before Hamvention. They will not be on sale at Hamvention or at the door.
Okay,
So
and
who wants to go?
That's a Friday night banquet?
It's a Friday night, yep.
Okay. I think I'm gonna try, and I guess you're going, Scotty?
Yeah, I just bought my ticket today.
Okay. I think I'll probably go and have my students come too. So
Howdy, are they going to mail those tickets, or are they just building a list?
They just build a list.
Okay. I think that's what they did the last time. So.
Yeah.
So I need to make sure I order tickets.
I'm assuming like the last time it's a cash bar.
Whatever it was in the past, it will be in the future.
Yeah. And I know it's a tribute to Bob Berenga. Is it just going to be some speakers that are going to memorialize him?
That's what I have in mind. What speakers we get, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But generally, anecdotes, stories, anything with your interaction with Bob. If you talk to him once at the flea market and he was rude to you, you can maybe not mention that. But if you told a joke and it was funny, anything to do with Bob that we can memorialize will be good. I mean, I have my own stories. I kept trying to get requests in for additions to the Kenwood HTs because he had the ear of Kenwood and he could, and the APRS functions he could get in. And I'm a big fan of time slotting, and Bob was not a big fan of time slotting. And I could never convince him that it was important to add time slotting. So it never got put in. So that's my one anecdote. So now you don't need to go to the banquet to hear mine.
Yeah. He had the things that he was adamant about and the things he wasn't.
Yeah.
My story about him is he came to the Polar Engineering Conference that was up here in Vermont some years ago. And he was giving us a hard time for our APRS installations, that they weren't giving him information about the repeaters in the area. So we reprogrammed them. Because that's what he originally did APRS for. It wasn't for so much precision reporting or weather reporting, but to tell you what repeaters were in the area. So you didn't need to search around for them.
I think most of the things that Bob did, unfortunately, were above the average amateur. I know if you ever listened to one of Bob's presentations, you really have to concentrate to keep up. And most of the times you can't do it because his brain moves at lightning speed and the talks just fly by. And I remember the talk he did on, like you were saying, Dave, the local frequencies. The idea was to put you in contact with local people that were near you. Okay. So he had it all set up where you could set the radio up on 5.2 simplex, and you could put that frequency and your call sign in the message block, and you could listen there. And if you turn the PL on the packet frequency, it wouldn't transmit PL, so you wouldn't hear that. Turn the PL off on 5.2, and he had this way to set your radio up so people could call you right on and talk to you on simplex as they were driving by, like on the freeway even. And the radio would automatically tell you who's close, so you could be in simplex range. But to try and follow how to set the radio up to do that was not trivial, because it had to do, like I said, with PL muting the packet tone so you didn't have to listen to them, but the radio is still getting them, but then the voice was not muted, so somebody could call you on an open channel and you could hear them. Pretty ingenious, actually, but complicated.
Right. Yeah, the other thing that was his hot topic for that conference was that, he recognized that those of us who work in polar regions have a hard time getting our data back. So his hot thing was to put up a number of CubeSats as data repeaters. And I don't believe that ever got implemented.
I had heard there was a PackSat, but I
Yeah.
never heard it and I never got to use it. So I don't know if it was real or not. Go to the banquet. There'll be plenty of satellite guys there to ask that question.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, I won't be making it this year, unfortunately, but hopefully next year. Good news is I have a ham fest to go to here. Well, actually not a ham fest. It's a vintage electronics fest.
Oh, that's fun.
Same weekend.
Same weekend as Hamvention?
Yeah.
Oh.
Clearly they're not all hams.
Yeah.
But these are the guys that collect old radios and TVs and stuff.
Yeah, the only thing I have about Bob was a couple of times in the flea market at Hera, he was big on electric vehicles and solar charging of them. So he had that set up in the flea market. And it was interesting because I'm, I survived 30 years in the automotive industry. I've since completed my 30-year prison sentence in automotive. So I'm free and clear. I'm not on parole or anything. So I've got a life again. But that, he was big on electrification. He had a car. I don't remember which one, but he had solar panels.
He had several. He had 2 Priuses and a Volt.
Ah.
Yeah, and I just remember his Prius with solar panels on the hood, which is.
Yep.
I think he burned one up, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
I know he worked as a civilian employee of the Navy at the Naval Academy, but somebody said he was also a retired naval officer. Does anybody know what the case is? Was he a retired naval officer?
I remember that rumor, but I don't know if it's true.
Okay.
I know he worked for the Naval Research Laboratory for a long time.
Yeah. So he was a civilian, both at the NRL and at Annapolis. I just didn't know if he had or had not served in the military.
I bet the whole story will be at the banquet.
I hope so. It'd be nice to know. But whatever his personality, he was also just a nice guy. Bob was just a gentleman.
He would always take time to talk to you.
Yeah.
So he wasn't one of those, egotistic guys who had better people to talk to. He was always willing to.
He was just a nice person, a gentleman, a fellow technical person, a fellow engineer to be around. Just a nice, overall nice person.
I'm looking at his obituary to see if they mention anything of his naval career. He was big in scouting. We knew that. Okay, let's see. He was a retired commander of the United States Navy and senior research engineer at the U.S. Naval Academy. So I guess that commander, would that be his rank in the Navy?
Yeah, that's a, if he was a full commander, there's lieutenant commander and commander. That would have been commissioned officer, officer grade 5.
It says he was a retired commander.
Yeah,
So,
if he was a full commander, not lieutenant commander, a full commander.
doesn't say lieutenant commander, just says.
Okay, yeah. Then he was, in terms of pay, he was an officer grade 5. And that pay scale is equivalent when you're a naval officer 5. That is the same pay as a lieutenant colonel in the other non-naval branches. They all make the same pay and benefits. So it's one officer grade 6 in the Navy and the Coast Guard is a captain and a naval captain, and they wear the eagle on their symbol of rank is the eagle, just like in the Army, Air Force, Marines, and Space Force, the eagle is their symbol for colonel. But they're all, when you wear the eagle, you're an officer grade 6, and in his case, he would have been a 5.
Okay, it doesn't give his rank here, but it says he was from 70 to 90. He was a engineering duty officer.
Yeah, that
So
makes
would that be-
sense.
would that be commensurate with his rank as a commander?
Well, if he was from 79, that was 20, then that meant he started out as an officer grade 1, an ensign, a naval ensign,
Oh,
which
okay.
in the other branches is second lieutenant.
But that's the lowest commissioned officer, right? Ensign?
Correct. It's commissioned officer, not
Right.
warrant officer, not non-commissioned
But
officer.
like if he went into ROTC, he would enter as an ensign, right? As a commissioned officer.
Yes, if he was ROTC or went to officer candidate school or graduated from one of the military academies, he would have been an officer grade 1. And the only difference between the various services is what is your title, your job function, and what is your uniform.
Yeah. Well, he graduated from Georgia Tech in 1970, and he must have joined the Navy right out of that. So I'm guessing he was probably in ROTC or some kind of thing like that.
ROTC, or he went to officers candidate school.
Yeah.
And 1970, Vietnam was still going hot and heavy, so it doesn't sound like he got posted to Asia.
Yeah. No, because he immediately went to the Naval Postgraduate School. So in 70 to 71. So according to this anyway.
Yeah. So he 20 years in the Navy, yes, an officer grade 5 commander.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, when I was in the Navy, my my boss was a commander. He was the engineering officer on an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And just because you're in the Navy does not necessarily mean you had sea duty. There, a lot of people in the Navy who do their full 20 or 30 years never set a foot on a ship at all, have no sea duty. They don't even visit a ship, except as maybe as a guest when it's tied up in port and someone takes them on to tour the boat. But they do their entire careers with no sea duty whatsoever.
Yeah.
That's very common.
Generally, though, you have to have sea duty or be an airman, or you don't go anywhere higher than lieutenant commander or commander or something.
Yeah.
Well, he was also an instructor at the U.S. Naval Academy from 83 to 85. So
yes, that makes sense from 70 to, what'd you say, 90 or 70?
70 to 90, yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense. I mean, he was an engineering officer.
Yeah.
Which makes perfect sense. And when you go to the Naval Academy and then become an instructor there, and he finished it out his career there and stayed on as a civilian employee of the Navy.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Anyway.
By the way, just the pension of a 20-year officer at that rank is I don't know what the current value is, but it's still a very good pension when you do that.
Like 60% of your pay or something?
It would, at his 20 years at his time, that would have been half pay.
Okay.
Half pay at a 20 years in service, officer grade 5 would have been 50% of his base pay, with no allowances or bonuses or anything else like that. Base pay.
Yeah.
Which is still, at today's rate, that's still a very high 5-figure number. Plus, he would have gotten his salary, his civil salary. So in terms of money, he wasn't hurting.
To buy lots of solar panels.
Ah, yes. And if he wanted that new toy, not a problem. Yeah, but he was a good man. He was definitely a good man.
Okay, well, I think I got to run here. We've done our hour. It's one of our shorter sessions, right, Dave?
Well, try to keep it at an hour unless people go on after that, but
Yep. So feel free to continue on. I just have to run. I got some things I have to do before it gets dark out, which it's rapidly approaching. So
I think I'm gonna head out too.
Ditto. 7-3, I'll see you in a week.
Yeah, same here. See you guys.
Thank
73,
you.
everybody.
The obituary that comes up on Google has his Navy picture. 73 all.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.